Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first Tech Thursday of 2023. Definitely got the date right this time. I hope you're all well. Hope you're all fantastic. I hope you all had a great seasonal period and you're ready and fresh here in January and raring to go. Just drop me some highs in the comments just to make sure that I know that you can hear me and you can see me and everything's going well. And we'll get right into it. This is Tech Thursday. We're here to talk tech. And of course, it's Happy Firmware Day. Today, we have announced the firmware updates, okay? Not only for cameras, but also for OM Workspace. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to hit that massive elephant in the room. That's right. We all know it's an elephant in the room. We all know that it's one of those subjects that we don't cover enough. So let's talk about it today. I have got the wonderful Michaela and the wonderful Jen, my chat elves today, that are going to be helping me with your comments, answering some stuff for me, putting some links into the comments as well, just so that you've got places to go and look at things that I'm talking about, and also directing me to some of the more important comments that I can answer live. Of course, it is Tech Thursday, so you can ask any question you like whatsoever, but my focus to talk to you today is going to be about firmware updates. So, what's a firmware update? Well, first of all, we need to talk about what firmware is. And remember, we're all on different levels of knowledge and understanding. So if you already know this is great. It's fantastic. You've already got that knowledge about your equipment. But if you don't, then this session is going to give you a little bit extra as well. So firmware update. What is a firmware update? Basically, firmware is a pre-installed piece of software on your camera's internal memory, and it kind of controls everything that the camera does, the settings, the features, the algorithms, the codes, and everything in there. And we release firmware updates. Oh, excuse me. We release firmware updates from time to time to either fine-tune those processors or to add features in once we develop new ones and things like that, if they're supported by the camera's processor and sensor, etc. And we release those kind of every now and again for different models. So it's really important that you keep an eye out for when we do this. So, you should see it. When you see it, you should be able to update that firmware and keep your camera equipment as up to date as possible. Now, some of the things that you can expect to get out of firmware updates are things like better functionality through lenses, because you can apply firmware updates to your lenses and your bodies, and improved imaging processing as well. Those are a couple of the key things that you can expect to get from those. You can also expect to get optimized performance, because remember, as we release a camera, we are also constantly working in the background on ways to make that particular camera better before we update to new cameras and things like that. So we try and get the most that we can out of every single camera. So improved performance is one of the big ones. Security is also another thing that we look at. We try to make sure that your equipment is secure as possible. So firmware updates can put things in like that. And I get a lot of people asking me, do I actually have to do the firmware update? Because some people get nervous about it. They hear horror stories. Yes, again, there is that elephant in the room. There are a lot of horror stories about doing firmware updates. But you really should try and make sure that you get the firmware updates. And there are a couple of different ways to do it as well. So we'll kind of try and cover those as much as possible in this session. So let's just quickly have a look over into the comments just to make sure. I'm just searching for a yes, I can hear you. Fantastic. That's all I need to know. And hello to everybody that's saying hi in the comments. There's so many of you. There's nearly 500 of you in today. We just get a good crowd when we do a firmware update, because everybody wants to know information, and particularly with this one, because there is some extra special information that goes along with it. And I've already seen people shouting it into the comments saying, come on, let's talk about this. Well, there really isn't much to talk about. So today's announcement for firmware is going to give you updates for the OM5, the EM1X, the EM1 Mark III, the EM1 Mark II, and the EM5 Mark III. So those camera bodies are going to be receiving an update. If you have an OM1 and you're wondering, why have I been left out? Why am I not needing this firmware update? It's because the focus of the updates has already been applied to your OM1 anyway, because we do work on things for a long time. Let's say it. The firmware update will be very important in the future because it is directly related to AF functionality for the 90mm macro lens. Now, everyone's going to be shouting at me going, does this mean that the macro lens is coming out? This means that the firmware update for these cameras is applying a functionality update for that lens. Okay, it just means that we are getting nearer and nearer to the final stages. Okay, so it's very exciting as well. So let's have a little chat about what we can do to get those firmware updates. I've got some questions that Michaela and Jen are starring for me. They're kind of bringing these to the front so that I can see them a lot easier. And I think I'm probably going to tackle these stage by stage as we go through. So do keep the questions coming in. I've got one in here from Sue. Sue's asking, can you use OM Workspace on an iPad? Can I update firmware from my iPad? So two-stage question. No, you can't use OM Workspace on your iPad because OM Workspace is software, not an app. But you can get the OM Image Share app on your iPad, and you can update the firmware through that. And I'm going to give you an example later on because for my sins, we are going to attempt to do a firmware update together. Yeah, we're going to do it live. We're going to do it two ways. Firmware update, double fried, 2 ways. OM Workspace right here live. I know it's crazy. I'm going to use all my laptop's resources to do this, so bear with me. And then I'm also going to do it on my phone as well. I'm going to do it on an iPhone. So Sue, we should be able to show you how to do that. It's not OM Workspace on your iPad. It is OM Image Share app. Okay, let's pop that away. So we've got another couple ones here that I'm just glancing at, and I'm going to take care of these when we get to that point in the session today. Okay, so really important. First thing that you're going to need to do if you want to do a firmware update is, of course, you need to have OM Workspace software on your computer or the OM Image Share app on your phone. Let's deal with the Workspace side of things first. Okay, if you haven't got it, you can go ahead and get it. Michaela or Jen will put links in the chat telling you how to get there, the download pages for those different softwares for both PC and Mac. And they should both be up to version 2.1.1. If you download a fresh update, it will prompt you to update it to the latest version. And if you've already got it installed, you can go ahead and update it yourself. What I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and be smart here and put different screens up. Remember, I'm all on my own, so I have to make all the clicks myself. If you have your OM Workspace, you'll be able to update the software itself, not the firmware yet. So you need to update the OM Workspace software. And you want to go up to the top tab here. You want to go to the Help tab, and you have the Update Software function here. Now, mine's already updated, so I don't need to do that. But that's where you'll be able to update to the latest version before you even go anywhere else. Okay, so that's what you need. First of all, you have to have that on your machine. All right. So you might be prompted to do different things depending if you're on Windows or a Mac. And I am going to talk about some of the more challenging side of using OM Workspace with a Mac. It can sometimes be really difficult. There are so many variations of possibilities with Mac and OM Workspace at the moment. But again, Michaela and Jen are in the chat putting in links to some guides that we've put together to try and help you through getting drivers updated and working with Mac and getting OM Workspace running with Mac. And there is also one for the M1 chip Macs as well. And I want to reassure you that we are also now working doubly hard to make things even easier and even better. So do bear with us on that one. Okay. So we're going to assume that you've got your OM Workspace down here, okay? And like I said, if you don't get a prompt to update it, just go to the Help tab and Update Software, and it'll tell you whether or not you're running the most up-to-date version. Okay. Now, once you've got your up-to-date version of OM Workspace, it's really important that every single step of the firmware process is followed to the letter. Okay, really, really important. So we're going to go through this. And don't skimp and don't skip and read things. And I will literally guide you through all this. And hopefully, fingers crossed, we will see it all working nicely. If I don't try and overload my laptop with everything else that's going on and live streaming to you as well. Okay. So super important that you follow everything. Don't rush. Because if you rush and you miss a step or you do something that you're not supposed to do along the way, then your camera could end up going to our local tech center for a little bit of TLC. So things that you're going to need before you start are the camera that you want to update. I've got an overhead camera here so you can see everything that's going on mine. I've got now interestingly, I know that I said you don't need to update the OM1 because there is no update for it. It already holds the information in that the others are getting updated for. I am actually going to update an OM1 today. So I've got a version 1 OM1 just here. So here we go. Here's my version 1 OM1. And this is the one that I'm going to be updating. So the first thing you need to have is your camera that you want updating. And if you want to update lenses, of course, you want to have a lens on there as well. Now, super, super important. The next thing that you're going to want to do is have the cable, okay? The cable that came with your camera, super, super important, okay? The original cable. Only very few data cables that you can buy separately will work. And I don't recommend that you even try it with them if you're even slightly suspicious that they won't work. The original cable has these ferrite casings on here as well. And that's there to help keep the data clean as it goes through. Our cables are designed to do exactly what we're going to do today. So super, super important that you have the right cable. I will at this point also acknowledge that some people have come to me and said, well, hey, you know, I've got an OM1. It comes with a USB-C to USB-C cable. And my laptop, my computer doesn't have a USB-C port. Can I use an adapter? Preferably not, because again, the more you introduce in this sequence of things, then the more possibility of things going wrong. But what you can do is you can use the cable that came with previous models, such as the EM1 Mark III or the EM1X, which is a USB-A to USB-C. So you could use that one as well. And if you need to order one, you can order one from us or your preferred camera retailer. Okay. So original cable, you've got your camera, you've got your lens, you've got your original cable, okay? Your battery, 100% charged battery. Where's my spare battery gone? Here we go. 100% charged. So don't mess about with 85, 90%. Get this bad boy up to 100%, okay? The camera knows. The camera knows if it's not 100%. And if we start the process and it thinks it can't go on, you'll get an error saying that it can't do it. Worse still is that it actually switches off during the update. And then again, the camera's going off to our local techies for a little bit of love and attention. So 100% full battery, super, super important. Okay. Now, once you're in there, once you're in the workspace software itself, the Windows and the Mac versions will be pretty much identical once the process begins. You might have to navigate some security protocols on Mac that are a little bit more complex. Like I said, the team are going to put links into guides to help you with that. And we are working on making that a lot easier to understand as well. But it's like anything else. When we are communicating between several places in order to do this, it can take a little bit of time, so bear with us, but be confident that we are going to do that for you. Now, if you want, it'll be in the live chat now, and then we'll put it into the comments and the description as well later on for those of you that are replaying, so have a look there. OM Workspace isn't the only software that needs a bit of extra special treatment with Mac and Apple products. So we're not on our own, but we are working very, very hard to make it a lot easier. Okay, so once you've got your OM Workspace up to date and running on your machine, here's how you're going to move forward. I'm going to guide you through the Windows version on my machine, okay? So just going to pop this in here. So this is the Windows version that you can see here. I'm taking my I'm taking my firmware and my camera and my life into my own hands, doing this whilst live streaming, because we're live streaming, we're running quite an intensive software and a complex run process behind it as well. So bear with me. Hopefully, you know, the last couple of days I've done this, I've practiced as you knew I would as well. You knew I would, and it's gone very well every single time. but I'm touching everything that is wooden in my office in the hopes that it doesn't go wrong now. So, I'm just chuckling at some of the comments in here, which are quite good. John's comment, this is brilliant. I'm going to show John's comment. It's really, really important. John wants to know, why don't these updates make me a better photographer? I can completely empathize. They don't make me a better photographer either, John. But we persevere. We must persevere. So let's go on with this. Here is my workspace. You're going to launch your own workspace, close down any other software. Really important. Let's get this just running on its own, nice and clean. More important for me because I'm live streaming as well. So I'm like resource happy over here. Everything's going on. Close down everything, launch your own workspace, and it's going to look a little bit like this. Depending on what else you've got going on, you might have some folders opening. I'm not opening any of those because they all contain secret squirrel stuff, okay? Lots of secrets in those folders. I can't accidentally click on any of those. Make sure that you don't have any screensavers or any sleep routines active on your machine. So turn off your screensavers, turn off your sleep routines, things like that. Don't try and run this through a VPN either, because that can cause you problems as well. You want to plug in your original manufactured cable into your laptop, and then the other end into the port on your camera as well. And if you want to update a lens, like I said, you can have that on at this point, but it's not necessary if you're just doing a body update. Okay. One of the most important things is check your internet connection. Okay. I am on a wired connection here. I live in a village which is flaky anyway. So I'm on a wired connection to my router so that my Wi-Fi is not causing me any problems. Don't update over flaky connections. Home Wi-Fi is usually okay, but if you've got a history of Wi-Fi dropouts, don't do it. It's not worth it. So try and get to your machine wired if possible as well. And also what's really important as well, what's worth noting at this stage is that I have seen some instances where the Wi-Fi router blocks a connection to the server, not just our server, but other servers as well, because it thinks it's not safe. And that's actually an ISP thing. It's directly linked to an ISP thing because it's over Wi-Fi. Usually connecting via a wired connection can solve that as well. So if you get an error message that says failed to connect to server, try doing a wired connection if you're on Wi-Fi, because it might be that the ISP is blocking the server. Doesn't happen super regularly, but I have definitely seen it happen. Okay, so less of my face. Let's go to the overhead camera here. It's slightly darker on this camera because it's going to be easier to see the screen. So what you want to do is switch the camera on. Okay, so you've got your wired connection up there. We're going to switch the camera on. And if I pop that to there, you can just see that we've got the options on the back: storage, MTP, raw control, USB PD, or exit. In every single situation for firmware updates, you want to select storage. So just find storage and press OK. All right. It says 1 moment. You might hear a lot of bings and bongs depending on what your computer does when it detects a USB input. And then it will just sit quietly on this dark screen, okay, with a little icon to say that there's a USB connection up there. Now, let's go back to this being the bigger screen. We want to go over to the software now, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to go up to the camera tab. At the top of the software, we're going to click the camera tab, and then we've got the update option just here. So we've switched the camera on, we've selected storage, and then we're going to go into the software, click update. At this point, you may get Windows security pop-ups that say, do you want this app to have this ability to do this, blah, blah, blah. Of course, you need to select yes if you want to continue. In my instance, I've already done that with this machine, and I'm getting a pop-up saying that these are some notes on updating firmware. And again, it's just reiterating what I've kind of said already. Okay, make sure that the battery is fully charged. The camera's plugged in, or the camera's plugged in separately using an AC adapter. Remove any other cables. If you want to update a lens, attach it to the camera. And once your camera is connected to the computer, confirm that your internet connection is working. Again, it's all these steps just to confirm everything, and position the camera so that you can see the back screen. Then click next. The software reaches out to the camera and gives us a message that says, for firmware updating, the camera will restart automatically. Do not disconnect the camera. it will say this to you constantly. Okay, so it's just reaffirming everything. Do not disconnect. Okay, so we're going to click OK for next. What happens then is that we'll get the storage option back up on the back screen. Okay, but the dialog screen is telling us here to check the monitor, and on the USB mode screen, select storage and click OK. So we're going to press OK on storage. It says 1 moment and does a little bing bong again, and we're ready to click OK on the dialog screen. Then we get this little buffering icon that's flying around there, and then it's going to connect to the server, and then it's going to tell us what firmware updates are available, what the body's currently at. So we've got a body on an OM1. It's on the current version of 1. So that's the original first ever version. And the newer version is 1.3. The lens hasn't got a newer version on it. This is actually the 12-40 f2.8 Mark II version, and it has no update yet, which is why this section here in the lens is blank, because there hasn't been an update for it yet. Now, of course, if you want to know what's going on in this firmware update, you can click details. You could have already gone to the joint update service, which is a web page that shows you all of the bodies and lenses and what firmware updates have been created for them in the past right up to the present. Michelle and Jen are going to put those links in the chat there for you as well, so you can click on that. But if you want to only know what's relative to your specific update, then you can click on the details tab here. And then I can drag in this page that's popped up on my other monitor that tells us that this is the firmware update for the OM1. Version 1.3, performance of CAF has been improved for stills and video, etc., etc., etc. So this will be relative to the body or lens that you're updating. Version 1, version 2, version 3. All of these versions, because we're on version 1.0, they will all update at the same time. We don't need to do this partially one at a time. It will go straight to version 1.3. What's probably super important at this stage is to just put my face up here, is that when people are asking whether or not they can update via the app, the OMSYSTEM image share app, for the OM1, the answer is yes, but you will have needed to previously have first updated to version 1.1 back in the past. If you haven't updated to version 1.1, you can't use the app, and you may as well do it all in one go right now, because that's what it's going to do automatically. Camera bodies that can use the app to update are EM1 Mark III, the OM1, and the OM5 as well. So they can all use the app to update. So that's the best way to go for that one. Okay, let's go back to the overhead, put that camera back where it should be, because it's going to do some stuff in a minute. It's going to show some stuff on the screen, and it's really important that we see that. So let me close down that. I'm happy that this is going to be a version 1.3 full update. I'm going to click update. Here we go. Keep your fingers crossed. I'm just joking. It's absolutely fine. If we follow the steps and the processes, it's absolutely fine. We get a warning to say that once the firmware is updated, we can't roll it back. Of course, yes, we'll continue and click yes. We have a software license agreement that we must agree to. Usual stuff. And then we'll get a little dialog box telling us about the latest settings and my sets, which also relates to custom modes, saying that they're going to be saved before the update automatically. And then once it's been updated, those settings will be reloaded back onto the camera. Okay. Now, there are a couple of places in this where I will be completely honest and transparent with you. It can look a little bit complicated, because this dialog box says to complete the process, please turn the power off and back on again. Don't do that right now. This is the very last thing that we'll do after we see OK on the back screen of the camera. So don't disconnect the camera from your computer until it's all done. Okay, I've read that and I've taken that on board, and I'm going to proceed. So then we get our little buffer icon. It goes around, downloads the update, and starts updating. Okay. Now, this isn't the actual update itself. This is it drawing all the information it needs from the server to the software. It says there, you've got about a minute remaining. So while that's happening, I'm just going to pop my face back up here. Sorry about that. And then perhaps we'll go this way. Oh, it's got very warm in here. Can you all see how warm I am? And I'm going to tackle a couple of these questions just here in the chat. So let's have a look. Stephen Hewitt has said, when I start Workspace, it asks me, let's pop this on the bottom here, to register. And when I try, it says site not secure and won't let me, Windows 11. I've seen this. but only on specific browsers. So I've seen this go through certain browsers. So it's worth trying that with where your browser, your default browser is a different browser, and see what happens then. I can't recall off the top of my head, I'm sorry, Stephen, which browser it was that was causing the issue, but try a different browser for that one. Hopefully that'll work. Okay. Let's have a quick look here. I've got Janet Brophy. Hi, Janet. Thanks for popping in. If I've never updated firmware on either of my cameras, OM1 and OM D5 Mark II, do I have to update chronologically? No. So I think we just kind of covered that. All of the updates will happen all in one go. As soon as you plug it in and hit firmware update, it'll go from 1.0 to whatever the nearest, the latest one is on there. So you don't need to worry about that. If anyone's wondering why I do get so red and hot in here, it's because there is a radiator right next to me, and it always comes on to heat the rest of the family up right when we're live. So I always get really hot and flustered up. So I apologize for that. I need to get a tan so it doesn't show. I'm going to start tanning. Okay, so let me, hopefully, Janet, we've answered that, and it'll go straight to the nearest update for you. So let's pop your question down. Now, let's go back. Let's flippy flop back over to here. So you'll see now that it says updating firmware. I'm going to put my overhead camera back on because I need you to see what's going on the back of the camera now. First of all, we've got these two arrows flashing, chasing around. That says things are happening. And two big do not do signs, okay? Do not touch and do not unplug. So take note of those. Really, really important, okay? And then over on the dialog box, it says updating firmware. So it will guide you through. Once OK, the word OK appears on the camera monitor, turn the camera off and then on again. Check the two check boxes below to say that you've done that. Okay, so once we see OK here, then we're going to go over to our check boxes and click confirm that the update is complete. Then we will turn the camera off and on again and click camera has been turned off and on again. Once we've done that, the next button will be available for us, okay? And not before then. But what some people will do is that they will tick these now, which highlights the next button, and they will hit next before OK is seen on here. So really, really important. We have to wait for the OK on there, and then we'll do an off and back on again. Okay, so while that's happening, it shouldn't take too long. We will come back. I'll come back up to here. And I am going to click on the next question that we've got here from Right Click Photography. Hello, Right Click. Thanks for coming in. How do you know which lenses need firmware updates? So nice and simple. You can either go to the joint firmware update page, which shows firmware update availability for Panasonic, and Olympus, and OM lenses and bodies. And it has a whole list of where they should be. In your camera, when you go to the gear tab, or the wrench tab, depending on which camera you're in, you can go right to the bottom and see firmware, and it will tell you what firmware your body and lens is on, so you can match that up to the updates. Alternatively, you could just keep swapping lenses and plugging it in and clicking firmware update, and it will buffer through and detect the lens and tell you whether or not there's an update on there. It's a bit of a long-winded process when you could just check the website, but you could do that. Thanks for your question. Brilliant question from Bob. Hi, Bob. Thank you for coming in, and thank you for your question. Bob is asking, am I supposed to remove any memory cards before updating? So I see a lot of people online saying you absolutely have to take them out, or you should keep them in. I'll be honest with you. There is no critical urgency to either of those. But if you leave them in, then every time the camera activates itself to be detected by your machine, you'll get the pop-up file folder storage window to show you that there's a memory card plugged in, and that's just annoying more than anything. So I take them out so that doesn't pop up. If you want a nice, smooth experience, yeah, take them out. But if you forget, it's not the end of the world. Right, guess what? Here we go. We've got OK on the back of the camera. So we've got OK. That means everything has been successful so far. So I have to switch the camera off and back on again. Okay. It quickly flashes up one moment, but we don't get anything else here. All right. Back on the dialog screen, I tick confirm that the update is complete. because I've seen okay, and confirm that I turned it off and back on again. Then I can click next. Let me just pop Bob's question down. Now it's going to reload any settings that I had previously on there, any custom modes that I had built, any kind of daily settings that were on there, absolutely anything, any copyright settings. It's going to put it all back on there now. And it's telling me don't turn the camera off because I'm reloading these settings. Then we get this dialog box here. Firmware update and settings reload are complete. The camera will reboot automatically. And of course it has done. Look here. It's rebooted to the storage screen. Once you get back to this USB screen, that's it. You can magically disconnect. That is all done for you. And then if you want to check your firmware level, you can go into the menu. And on the OM1, it's over here in the wrench tab. And at the bottom, firmware version 1.3 and lens 1.0. So that one is all up to date. Okay, let's put that there for a moment. Fantastic stuff. So I can breathe a sigh of relief because all of my overpowered machinery hasn't let me down today, and my OM1 is now safely up to date on version 1.3. And it would be the same for any other camera that you want to update. That is how the process should be going for you. Following those procedures should make it nice and easy with OM Workspace. Now, of course, if you've got an OM1 that's on at least version 1.1 or 1.2, then you can make it 1.3 by going through the OM image share app. I'm actually going to do it on I'm going to do it on an OM5 today for you, because the OM5 has got legitimately the firmware update to improve autofocus functionality with the 90mm macro. So we're going to do that one today. Let's see. Let's go over to an overhead camera again. Here we go. Here's my OM5, okay? And bring it in here. Here is my phone, my iPhone. Let's just get it out of the glare there. Okay. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to switch on the Wi-Fi in my... These two have been introduced already, by the way, so they know each other through the app. I've done all the setup process. I'm going to tap the Wi-Fi icon on the camera, and it's going to say initiating. Once it does that, I've got a white screen. I'm just waiting. This will automatically connect to my phone. I'll get a little 1 next to the Wi-Fi icon in the top corner here. And once I've got that, then I know that they're good to go. Let's tap the OM image share app icon. Okay. And then we get this screen just here. If you look down at the bottom, it says OM5. It connected instantly as soon as I switched it on. This is an iPhone SE, by the way. It's nothing fancy. It's just a basic version. But they are connected. So camera is connected to phone. Now, if you're doing this with a camera that can be updated via the app, then all you need to do is go to the gear icon at the top of the app homepage, tap that, and then you have camera management as your first option, which you can also tap. And then within camera management, you have update firmware, and we can tap this. Now I'm just going to, my apologies, I don't know what's happened here. I'm just going to remove that just for a second. I'm going to just zoom in a little bit, actually, so you can see this a little bit easier. So I want to update the firmware. It's telling me that I'm on an OM5 on version 1, and the lens that I have is also version 1. I can click the check for update option just there. Camera's just gone to sleep, but it's still connected, so don't worry about that. So very quickly, it's told me that there is an update for the OM5 version 1.1, and I can hit update here. So I can look at the details. If I tap that, it's going to take me through, but we are not going to look at that because we've already seen that on the OM Workspace app. So I'm just going to hit update here and then agree to my software license agreement. It gives us some steps to update, and these are really simple. It just says to tap update at the bottom. And don't turn the camera off whilst you're doing it. Nice and easy. Hit download. It will warn me that the download is 88 megabytes. And it warns me because obviously we're on a phone. So this is all about how much data is being sent through to your phone. So if you're on Wi-Fi, it's fine. If you're on cellular data, there could be an impact on there. It's your choice. So we're going to click download. And then away it's going to go. It's going to do its own little download there and go through that. Now, whilst that is downloading, I am going to go back into some questions here. We've got Sue back in here. Sue, is there anywhere in the UK that offers an update service? That's a really, really good question, actually, Sue. So ultimately, you should be talking to your local retailers and asking whether or not they do camera updates for their customers. If you see any of your regional tech team from OM System, myself or Claire, and in the other countries, people like Thomas, Thierry, Martin, Michelle and Mike in the US, if you see them out and about, then they'll be able to do that for you. But your first port of call, if you want to get this done by someone else, is to talk to your local retailer, and they should be able to help you out. Thanks for your question, Sue. Charles has got a great question in here as well. Does the update save and restore my custom settings? It absolutely does. The only thing that you'll need to do once the update has been completed is to go into your setup menu and re-input your time and date. That's the only thing that you'll need to do afterwards, is put the time and date back in. So, so I just noticed that because I'm in a village with no signal anywhere, this is going to take 13 minutes to update, because I've got barely any cellular signal, data signal on this phone, and it's not downloading it on Wi-Fi because it's connected to the camera. So that's going to take a while. So we'll have some chance to come back to the main screen and do some Tech Thursday questions as well. Charles, yes, it will do the restore the custom settings. Belinda, can I have my OM Share app know 2 cameras? No. So you can only register for this thing, this kind of activity, 1 camera. But it is easy to just scan in a second one and replace that registration each time you need to do it. It should be a very, very quick process. But no, you can only have 1 registered for the firmware update and camera management at any time. You can have more than 1 connecting for everyday day-to-day remote shooting, because you can just literally open it up as a Wi-Fi network. But for this business, you can have 1 at a time registered in. Apparently asked, will the OM Share update lens firmware? Yes, it will. So if there is an update, you will be able to do that through this as well. 12 minutes. We're down to 12 minutes. That's pretty good. So I'm going to let that go through here. So Anastas, connect the phone to the Wi-Fi. I can't. The phone's connected to the camera via Wi-Fi. So that's why the phone is using the cell signal. I would. Let's see. Are the settings saved on an EM5 Mark III? Yes, on an EM5 Mark III, yes, the settings will be saved, but you'll be doing it via OM Workspace because the EM5 Mark III can't be done through the app. So yes, it is. I'm just going to take that away because that's quite a boring view. I mean, I know the worst view is that you're going to get my face. I have my really red and warm face. Although considering that it's, you know, -2 degrees in the UK at the moment, being warm is actually a good thing. Let's see while that's going. I'll keep my eye on it, and when it does its thing, we'll go back to it. Okay. Let's see Juliet's question here. If the camera's updated but lenses are not, will they still work? Okay, yeah, absolutely fine. The thing with updating lenses is that generally speaking, we put firmware updates out for lenses to do 2 things. One is to improve focusing ability, usually because we've been researching better ways to do that, and we can add that in via software, or to allow them to work with certain features and special modes like focus stacking. So providing you're not bothered about that, then you don't have to update the lenses. They will still work perfectly fine, but they will work better if you do the updates. Thank you for your question, Juliet. Let's have a little look. Jack. Hello, Jack. Thanks for your question. When updating a lens along with the 1.4 or 2.0 extenders, there are some added things to be aware of. There aren't. There's nothing to be aware of when updating a lens with those, because you don't put the extenders on for the update. Extenders do not need updating, and you should not have them in between the lens and the camera when updating a lens, but you should update the lens. So 40-150, 300mm f4, things like that. They all need updating to use MC20 and MC14, but you don't put the teleconverters on at the same time. They must not be in between. So, and then you should be fine with that. Yeah. Okay, let's have a look. 9 minutes. That's going to be within the Tech Thursday time scale anyway, so that's quite good. We've done the main one. We've done OM Workspace. I hope you're all very proud of how that went live as well. And Michela's probably in the chat basement right now, applauding that my laptop didn't burst into flames or something like that. Okay, Jay Ross. Hi, Jay. What about the lens updates? The lens you had attached was up to date. Do you run the updates with each lens attached? Yes, you do. So if you've got many lenses that need updating, you will need to run an update for that one lens. It will complete. And then when it's completed, what you will see is this. Oops. I'll try that size. This screen here, which gives you the option to continue updating. And if you click continue updating, it takes you back to the start of the update process where you can change the lens, put another one back on, switch the camera on, select storage, and go from there all over again. So yes, you can. Okay. Right. Jose, this is a great question, and it has to be kind of tackled with a huge amount of transparency and honesty. What happens if I'm updating the firmware from my laptop and during the update the internet connection is lost? There is a possibility that the process will stop and the software will just tell you that it is unable to continue and nothing will go wrong. There is also a possibility that the software will just hang and not tell you that it can't continue. And there is nothing else that you can do other than to close the software down. And then there is a strong possibility that if it's halfway through the update process, when this happens, that the camera will then not boot up. So then you need to send it to us, where we will put the boot code back in and send it back to you. Which is why at the start of the session, when I said, don't do this on a flaky internet connection, really don't do it on a flaky internet connection. Don't sit down and hotspot your phone to your laptop and try and do a firmware update from a hotspot. Make sure that you've got the most solid connection that you can possibly get. 6 minutes. Thanks, Jose. It was a great question. Okay. A Tech Thursday question. Brilliant stuff. Tech Thursday question. What is back button focus? Oh, I've just lost my camera lead, so I might have to go down there in a minute for it. Peter's asked, what is back button focus? Brilliant question. For those not in the know, back button focus is when you use a button on the rear of your camera to initiate focusing, usually continual autofocus. Rather than having it attached to the halfway press on the front shutter. So some people will like it back here so that you can press it with your thumb, keep it pressed down, and the camera will continuously focus whilst you're kind of following around the lens cap off, whilst you're kind of following around the subject, and then you can simply just release with the front shutter. So that's what back button focus is. There are millions of people out there that will tell you that that is the only way to shoot wildlife and sport, and they have excellent results from that. But some people just don't get on with it. So it's worth having a try and seeing if it's any good for you. Great question, Peter. Thank you so much. 5 minutes. So and I just want to put this out there as well, as if I haven't told everybody and their dog so far. Is that this is my last Tech Thursday here with this because I'm moving out of the villages and back into the town. So once we're there, we won't have this problem because we'll have considerably better cellular data signal. Okay, let's see. From Monica, I have OM1 Mark III. You have an EM1 Mark III. So you have an EM1 Mark III. Do I use image share on my phone or OM Workspace through my computer? You know what? I would say use the app. If you can, the EM1 Mark III can use the app. Just crack on with the app. Make sure that you've got a good data signal. If you haven't got a data signal, it's going to be as slow as mine. But yeah, use the app. If you don't want to risk all the cables and everything else like that, use the app. It really depends on which one you want to do for that one. It's your choice. But I would recommend using the app if you've not done it before. Excellent stuff. Okay. Plowing through some of these comments. Fantastic. Michelle and Jen doing a fantastic job of putting links in there to the information that I've been talking about today as well. So thank you very much, my amazing chat elves, for helping me out back there and starring all these questions for me as well. Let's see where we are on that. 4 minutes until this one updates on here. I'm just going to check that some of the things that I wanted to make sure that we covered today, I think we pretty much have. Yeah, just to reiterate that obviously we want you to be able to do this across as many different systems as possible, but remember there are so many different factors. So check out these guides, these walkthrough guides on how to do those, and fingers crossed you will be able to do it. And like I said, we are working hard to make sure that it's an easier process as well. Okay, I've got a couple more questions to hit on here. Pamela, hi Pamela. You've just got the OM1 and you were told that it can't have ND filter engaged during multiple exposure. Why? That's right. Because they're two very high computational features. The live ND functionality uses an algorithm that processes 1/8 of a second shots continuously, constantly, in real time. So you can't apply that on top of the multiple exposure. Very much in the same way that you cannot high-res focus stack. I mean, maybe sometime in the future, you know, as we develop things get better and we're able to put them into different applications. But that is why. It's because they're really, really high processor-hungry computational features. But please enjoy both of those features equally. Let's have a look. Sharon is asking, where is back button focus on the OMD 1 Mark III? 1 Mark III here, yeah. Okay, so on the OM1, you have an AF on button that is specifically for back button focus as well. On the OMDs, there is a functionality that links it to the AEL button, okay? I'm going to go and get that cable. I got that cable, don't worry about it. Didn't have to go too far. But the thing is, with the OM1, AF on is by default a back button focus button. You can just go ahead straight away, hit it, and it works. With the OMDs, you have to explain to the camera that you want that functionality attached to the AEL button, okay? Now let's see if we can bring this up here. There we go. So this is an EM1 Mark III. And what I would do to make that AEL button the back button focusing option is hit the menu and then scroll down the extreme left bar to the gear icon, press right into A1, and then in A1 find the AEL AFL settings and press OK. Normally you're going to want back button focusing for continual autofocus, okay? So CAF is just here. You want to press right. And at the moment, it's in mode 4, okay, which means that AF will start on the halfway press of the front button, but AF will also start on the back button. Now, you want it so that it's only really starting on the back button and it's not attached to the front at all. So what you want to do is come down to this option here where it says halfway AF operative and make that inoperative, okay, and press OK. So now when you're in mode 4, you can see there that the halfway press of the front shutter has these 3 dashes, which means that functionality has been taken away from it. And all of your focusing goes to the AEL button on the back. The front shutter simply will now take the shot. It will expose the image. So it's completely separated. Nice and easy. I hope that helps, Sharon. Perfect stuff. Okay, so what I want to do is... let's go to this camera here. Ta-da! 7 seconds. We managed to chat all the way through that. Okay. So saving the camera settings, really, really important. It's saving everything that's on there. And it's guiding you through. Don't turn the camera off. Really important. It's transferring the firmware. And this should be relatively quick once it's there. So it's already up to 10%. And it should be nice and easy. This is a fairly slick process. I've just seen a question actually that I'm going to bring up right now because I think this is super important. Tom asked, will any USB-C cable work? No, it will not. Absolutely not any old USB-C cable. Realistically, you want to be using the one that comes with the camera. It's got these ferrite casings on each side. Some very expensive data cables will work. Some not so expensive ones will work, but to avoid any problems, you should try and use the original cable that came with the camera. Not all USB-C cables are born the same. Some are just for low power and things like that. So it was a great question. I'm glad that you put it in there, Tom, because I wanted to grab onto it straight away. So I'm just going to put this up as well. The team, my chat elves, Michelle and Jen, have put in there that you can reach out to the customer care team if you have any individual issues that you want to talk about on the Mac computer. Contact us. They've put the link in there. We will make sure that everything we can do, we will do in terms of helping you with that. Okie dokie. So my firmware's on its way. It's buffering through and things like that. Eva's just put a message up. This is interesting. I don't know this specific error code, but it should have said something like failure to communicate with camera or failed to connect with server before it gives you this code, Eva, on there. So if you can, try and let us know which one of those it did do. Okay, look, remember this. Remember the do not touch and do not unplug sign and the two spinny arrows. It's exactly the same thing, okay? And then the phone is telling you almost an identical thing, and it's waiting for the OK message to be displayed on the back, and you have to tick a little box to say OK is displayed on the camera. So we're just going to wait for that. OK is that kind of key marker for us to do absolutely anything. Okay. I'm going to let that flash away and go back in and literally dig up. Here we go. Eva said the communication failed during the update. If it's a fail to communicate with the camera, then it could be one of two things. The battery's not charged enough. The cable's not the right cable. Usually one of those two things if it can't connect to the camera. So try and fix those two. Okay, so OK on the back screen of the camera, I'm going to tick the checkbox to say, yeah, OK is displayed on the back camera and hit next. It's telling me to restart, switch off, and then switch on again. Tick the checkbox to say camera has been turned off and on again, and then click next. Load the camera settings. So get the Wi-Fi back up. Initiate the device connection. And then once that's up, you can tap to say device connection has started and then click load. So it says it's found the camera, a little bit more buffering. And I think most people find this a safer option because there are no cables. There's nothing to knock out. There's nothing to accidentally pull out or anything else like that. Okay, so just going to pull this one up. From right-click. Right-click says that you suggest that we brand the cable supplied with the camera so we know which one to use. You have tons of cables from different devices, including those with ferrite bulges. Yes, that's not a bad suggestion. I will take that for you and I will send it forward. Thank you very much. Okay, so we've got a message saying the update is complete. Done. That is it. It is finished. The update is complete. The OM5 is up to date. If I go into the menu now, so I can hit menu, let me just turn down the brightness of this so you can actually see that menu screen. And we'll go down to the wrench icon and across to firmware version. And we can see there that we're on body 1.1. So it's all done nicely. Now, my phone is still looking for the camera. It's not going to find it, though, because it's deactivated the Wi-Fi on there. Okay, so despite me being out in the middle of nowhere and my data signal for my phone being incredibly slow, that was a really, really easy process to follow. Hopefully you'll all find the same as well. Now, we're kind of coming up to the end of our session here for Tech Thursday. So there's not a great deal else that I can kind of do in terms of answering questions, but what I will always try to do is come back to the main comments of the video after the live is finished. So once the live finishes, the whole video will go back into the channel under lives, and you'll be able to add new comments underneath it. So this is the live chat. That'll kind of just float around as live chat. But if you add new comments underneath, if you've got questions that you really, really want answering in terms of tech, put them into that comment bars underneath the video once the live's finished. And I will do my best over the next few days to go in and answer them as well as I possibly can. And I'm going to just pull up one last question here from Charles, who says, do you recommend updating the OM5 if not planning to buy the 90mm macro? Why would you not be planning to buy that lens? That'd be my first question. No, I completely understand that. Your camera's not going to fail if you don't do the update. You're not going to miss anything if you're not updating, if you're not getting the lens. So if you're feeling nervous about it, no, you don't need to do it. You're not going to miss out. But at some point, obviously, there will be improvement updates that are purely for the body. So at that stage, we would recommend that you do update. And if you're feeling nervous, then reach out to us and we'll see how we can help. If we can help, we will do. Okay. So all that's left to say is thanks very much for bearing with me. Interestingly, it was only the length of time that it took my phone to download the firmware update through the app that was the longest bit. But I hope that this session has been enough to show you that the process can be simple as long as we follow the processes, and that we are here to help you when you need it. So don't suffer in silence, and don't get upset without first reaching out to us. Because your first port of call whenever anything's not going right or you're not sure should be reaching out to us, and we're always there to help. There's a few of us scattered around the world that are just there literally to make sure everything goes right for you. So thanks for watching the first Tech Thursday of the year. Happy Firmware Day. This fantastic firmware that is very exciting for the future. So many people excited. The next time you see me, I'm not sure what we'll be doing, but I'll be somewhere else. So I've got to go and start building a new studio. I'll answer as many comments as I can after the video. But for now, I'm going to say goodbye. And wherever you are in the world, take care. And I'll see you on the next session. Bye for now.